Rabbi Hellinger is the publisher and editor of the weekly Farbrengen Perspectives magazine, which I, Baruch Hashem, was able to help him that a bit years ago, and multiple books. And is also a chaver on a personal note. And we are honored to have you presenting here.
Hey, good evening. The shir. So tonight is Rosh Chodesh Shvat, and it is, as it was mentioned, it's the day on which Moshe Rabbeinu began to explain the Torah, Bayer Heitev, V'shivim Lashon. So Rabbi Yudi mentioned the Sikha in Chelek Lamed Vav. There's also another important Sikha which I don't believe he mentioned in Chelek Chaf Daled. Very, very important Sikha from Rosh Chodesh Shvat Tafshin Mem. And in that Sikha, the Rebbe also speaks about what happened on Rosh Chodesh Shvat by Moshe Rabbeinu in the year 2488. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he translated the Torah Bayer Heitev. Now, the Rebbe brings another statement we find with regard to translation of the Torah. That was a translation that was done by the Chachamim for Talmei HaMelech. And the Rebbe quotes is the famous translation that was done by the 72 Chachamim for Talmai. But there's another story that's brought in other sources where there were 5 Chachamim who translated it into, also they were called to translate it for Talmai. There's a number of different versions of it, but in the place it says is that there was not the Oisei HaYoim. It was like the day when they made the Egel, when they made the golden calf. Instead of ask what was so bad about it, we find that the translation of the Torah was a good thing. So why are we saying here that the Moshe Rabbeinu was told to translate the Torah into 70 languages? So why was it so bad that they translated the Torah? So the Rebbe points out it's a long sikha. If you want to see the full thing, you can look in there. But in short, what the Rebbe says is that the lashon is it's the day when the egel was made, not the day when they served the egel. It's the day when the egel was made. What is the significance of that? That the egel was made, it did not yet have all the bad that came after it. There was still potential for not that it was a potential for bad. It wasn't actually bad yet. In fact, Aaron said Chag LaHashem Machar. It's a holiday for Hashem, a true holiday for the Eibishter, which it could have been if Moshe would have come down before they served, if they would have held out on serving the Egel Azov. So what we had was there a potential for bad. And what the Rebbe explains over there, what the significance of the Egel, why is it similar to the Egel Azov? And the Rebbe says like there's something very, very interesting, which I think is relevant to all of us who translate Hasidus. What did they want to do with the Egel Azov? Why did they want to make a golden calf? The Rebbe explains that their intention was to bring Elokus down. We know that the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu, Gzeh Ha'ish Moshe, the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu is that he is someone who embodies Elokus and brings it down to them in a way that they could relate to it in his mind and heart. And they wanted to have the same. They wanted to bring it down even further. This is so good. This is bringing down Elokus down to the world. It's so good to bring it down. We'll bring it down to Egel Azav even more than Moshe. And so what was the problem with it? The problem was that they were not doing it at the instruction of Hashem. This was not what Hashem had instructed them to do. The Rebbe compares this to similarly when it comes to the translation. So when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, when he translated the Torah, he was doing it at the instruction of Hashem, and therefore it was the idea was to follow Hashem's will and to bring Elokus down to the world. When Talmei HaMelech commissioned translating the Torah, so there was a very big danger for Avodah Zarah in the practical sense with translation of the words, but it could lead to not good things. And the way that I understand the Sikha is that the Rebbe is saying that if the goal of doing it is inside the Tzivui Hashem, the command of Hashem to bring Elokus down to the world, then it's a good thing. Then it's a good thing, a very important thing. But if it's being done because for Talmai's interest, in order to meet the desire of the people, and the people want something relatable, they want something accessible, and we're bringing it down because they want it. It's more for to make it accessible and relatable because of their interests. So then it can pose a risk of creating something which is detached from Elikus. So we have something, whenever you bring something down from the source and you bring it down, it could be an extension of the source and it's coming down, bringing the source down further, or it could be detached from the source and then it runs the risk of being separated in the opposite of Achdus Hashem. So I think that as us, we're translators of Chassidus and bringing Chassidus down to the next level, to other languages, whether it's other spoken languages or other ways of understanding things, different metaphors, different ways of seeing it. So it's very important that we stay faithful, and that the topic of the talk is spreading the light, faithfully transmitting our Rebbeim's messages. So we're trying to bring the Chassidus down to the people, and we have to make sure that what we're bringing is actually Chassidus, and we're spreading the light of Chassidus. So there's before I discuss specifics in this, I'll mention there's a mashal. We have to believe the power of the Rebbeim's words in their purest sense. The Rabbi Yoel would tell a famous mashal of the people who were thrown into the pit, and the people were thrown into the pit, and they lived there, and they had children there, and their children did not have never seen the light of day. They'd never been outside, and they had a whole debate about whether there actually exists a world outside, or this is it, this is all there is. And then there was one day there was someone else who was introduced to the pit. Another person was thrown in, and he shared he spoke to them, and he told them that there is a world. And Rio would contrast the different groups, but the main point that's relevant here is that when he spoke to them, he was actually speaking what he saw personally. It wasn't just what these people in the pit were saying about what they believed, but this was what he saw personally. And that's how a Rebbe has that impact on us, because he's speaking, he sees Elikus, he relates to it in a very real way, and he shares that with us. So when we hear things from the Rebbe directly, in the Rebbe's words, it has a whole different impact. And that's always why Chassidim try to bring people to the Rebbe, to see the Rebbe, to hear the Rebbe, in whichever way they can. So when we translate Chassidus, so it's important that we do what Rebbe says about Afat Samayan is that the Mayan, it's about bringing the Mayan, the actual wellspring, to the Chutza. Not just that we're bringing something from the Mayan Chutza, but we're actually bringing the Mayan to the Chutza. And the Mayan always has to be connected. We know that a Mayan, in order to be kosher as a for tefillah, it has to be continuously connected to the source. So I believe there's two general formats. I'll just share with you. Let me share the screen. So I'm sharing with you here a screen. I put a few pieces over here. A few selections here. You see the first one is from the Sikh I mentioned before. Haben sie gemeint, dass es darf nimshach werden durch eine niedrige Dagen Elam Haza, durch dem wird es haben mehr Wirkung in der Welt. Okay, so that was the mistake that they made, and the importance of doing it right. But the next point, which I want to point out now, is a letter to Reb Shlomo Chaim from the Frierdiker Rebbe. So here, the Rebbe Frierdiker Rebbe speaks about, this has been mentioned before on the on other times, that the about Chazering Chassidus, that he wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Maimarim have to be Chazer the Oisius Harav, and to make sure to say it exactly the way that was said. So the Rebbe Frierdiker Rebbe points out that Mishkahu, it's a mistake. Like I've said before, that what does it mean to keep the Divrei Harav means not laharbais b'biurei hezber shel hevel, not to go on with explanations of hevel. I don't know exactly how you want to translate that, but I don't think he's saying something which is completely incorrect, but it's not Chassidus. Rather, to explain the signon of the Maimer, and wherever it's necessary to explain, repeat the signon of the Maimer, wherever it's necessary to explain it, and to take from other places of Chassidus. So here, what the Frierdiker Rebbe is describing in Chazar Chassidus is to say over the Maimer, but just to add explanation as needed. Then we have another letter, a very interesting letter, the Rebbe to Matel Perlov, who was the Rav. He's a Rav in Italy and Australia, and he wrote that here's a very interesting thing. The Rebbe makes a difference between what kinds of things you add in. So the Rebbe says that to Chazar Maimarim, the Lashon as it is, obviously the listeners are not going to understand, so they're not going to come to listen to the Maimer. So he asked the Rebbe if he could add from Sifrei Drush, and the Rebbe says you should not mix the Teven im Habar. You should not mix the food with the straw. And if you have to add explanation, you could find explanations in Sichos of the Frierdiker Rebbe, in the letters, stories. And if that's not enough, you could take from what is spoken at Farbrengens of Chassidim, that the levush should be be'erech to the thing which is melubash in it. You hear the Rebbe, here the Rebbe is making a very important distinction between levushim, which are conducive, which are they transmit, they give over, they conduct the information properly. The medium is such that the message gets through in its proper sense. And then when you mix in other things which are shalei lefi erech, which are not the kinds of things of Chassidus, they're more Sifrei Drush, it takes away from the Chassidus. It loses its potency, and it's no longer Chassidus. It doesn't have that type of the energy of Chassidus. So I think that this means for us is that there are two formats, generally speaking, two formats of transmitting Chassidus. One is the original form, where we're taking pure content to Oisius Harav, which of course does not mean the literal translation. We see that from the Frierdiker Rebbe's letter. We see that does not mean to translate the Chassidus as it is. Of course, we have to paraphrase. Of course, we have to add explanation as needed. But generally speaking, that's one format, is where we're saying it over, or writing it as in the general format that it was said. In fact, in that Sikh in Chelek of Daled, the Rebbe says that what did they do? What did the Zkenim do by the Talmei HaMelech, the second set of Zkenim, the 72 Zkenim, is they made changes, and those changes were necessary. If they would not make those changes, that would have led to a steer to Achdas Hashem, where Elokim Bara Bereshis Bara Elokim would have been misunderstood, and therefore they had to make it Elokim Bara Bereshis. So the changes itself is what gave over the right ideas. If they would have translated correctly, the lashon is it's Eini Yachali Targim Kol Tzarka. You're not able to translate it properly, and that's if you translate it exactly, that you're not translating it properly. You must change things in order to translate it properly. But at the same time, you're making sure that you're giving over exactly the truth of what was said, the content of what was said, the message of what was said, and not so much the words. So that is the first idea. And the second format is what we have is essays based on Chassidus, where a person takes out an idea from Chassidus and gives that over in his own format, in his own style, and that's where it's important to make sure that it's well anchored and it's really founded on the Rebbeim's words. Unfortunately, we come across all types of Narishkeiten written in the name of the Rebbe. We have quotes, different nice, feel-good type of slogans, and it's coming from the Rebbe when the Rebbe never said it, and it's not even the teichen of what the Rebbe said. So you have like people bring out, I could have a lesson on relationships based on a mashal and a maimer. So instead of taking out the content of what the maimer is trying to say about our connection with Hashem, we take the mashal and we take from the mashal and we create a lesson about relationships. It might be very nice, it might even be true, but that's not Chassidus. That's not what Chassidus is teaching us. There's nothing as a klal gadol. If a goy, and I've heard this from chashuva people, if a goy could say it, then it's not Jewish. Then it's not Chassidus. It's certainly not Chassidus. So we think about something. Think about, is this something that's unique to Chassidus? Is unique to the Rebbe? Is something Jewish b'chlal, or is this just something a nice thing that anyone could have said? And this ties back to the idea before that the general mindset and the attitude that we have a big schus, and we also have an achrayus to make sure that what we're giving over is actually accurate in specifics, and it's accurate in spirit, that it's bringing out the content of what the Rebbeim says, what the Rebbeim said.